just listened to two very interesting stories about urban air mobility. I'd like to invite Yvonne up on stage, Orvin up on stage, conductors Samar Al-Jabari. Can we get a big round of applause for them? Take a seat. Bit of distance, but welcome. We just heard the story of Salam, the Sky Alliance for automated air mobility. We're here in the Kingdom today, in a massive transformation program and with a massive opportunity to make transportation available for the masses affordable. We're going to dive into this open panel discussion. I'd like to introduce to you Yvonne is the co-founder and COO of the company FlyNow Aviation. We just heard the story about it. What we don't know is that Yvonne grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. She knows what comes with it to become an entrepreneur and everything around it. She has a very lengthy experience in retail, in wholesale, enterprise level logistics. Ask Yvonne anything about sustainability. The passion that she has for sustainability is incredible. Orvin is the CEO of Skyroads, focusing on sustainability and making it a commercial, viable and scalable access for advanced air mobility. Orvin personally is very passionate about making the three-dimensional space available for everyone. Last but not least, we have Dr. Jabbar Al-Samadi. Very interesting reading through everything that Dr. Jabbar has already done in his life. I cannot sum up everything that he's done, but reading through the massive programs of transformation, the successes he has done, incredible. Today, he is responsible at NIDC as a VP for the aerospace, and contributing in the conversation how to make this space happen. So, Yvonne, I have a question. We just heard the story of FlyNow, high level. You've developed an electric helicopter. This means a leap forward for the entire space that 3D mobility is operating in. This is massive, and I'm not a domain expert, I don't understand enough about it, but what I've heard about it, this is truly fascinating. Can you take me on the journey of how you envision implementing this technology in the kingdom, and what steps you are taking to overcome the initial challenges that are coming up in this market?
Microphone.
Okay, sorry, microphone was not working. Okay. Thank you for the question, Viresh. So I'm really honored to be here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and I see that this country is leading the transformation in mobility. And this is why we are convinced to be here, and that we want to contribute to unlock the potential of a new low-altitude economy. We are basically talking about entire new economy, and it is very clear that this will change the way we commute. And we are an OEM, so we are a producer of these vehicles that I introduced you before, but it takes a lot more. It takes a whole ecosystem in order to be able to implement it. And so I'm very grateful to Dr. Salma, who pushed me a lot to come up with a solution, or a turnkey solution. And we found like-minded people to join forces and created an international association called Sky Alliance for Automated Air Mobility. In this association, we partnered up with all the necessary stakeholders to develop a solution that really have every aspect of the implementation for this new mode of transportation.
Thank you. Question for you, Corbin. So, Skyroads is known for its innovation in the digital infrastructure and the solutions that you provide. Can you discuss how you approach and how you have overcome the implementation challenges?
Pardon the implementation?
The implementation challenges in this space.
Right. Is the microphone on? Yes. Yvonne led into that question. We have realized that although our industry has been talking about cooperation for the last 7 or 8 years, there is very little cooperation. But still, they are right about the fact that there will not be an implementation of air mobility without cooperation. So we have been charging ahead, and that is, again, thanks in great parts to Dr. Samer's initiative. He made it absolutely clear that the only way to gather substantial interest in this country is to make a comprehensive offering that comprises all the different parts of the solution. It is completely unthinkable that a host state like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will on its own start integrating different technological components, saying, oh, now we have a vehicle. Who is going to do the digital infrastructure? Who might be the vertiport providers? Oh, let's look for a potential operator of vehicles. It will not work like that. The way it can work is putting together on a commercial platform a system of like-minded and willing entities who want to cooperate, and then make a joint offering to a host nation like the Kingdom. We're very grateful for NIDC in taking the initiative and formulating this brilliant concept. And we think it is absolutely key towards implementing anything close to advanced air mobility in real life. I'd like to back that by the statement that there have been different approaches. You read 3 years ago that the city of Shanghai ordered aircraft. Have you seen them flying? No, you haven't. Because buying an aircraft doesn't make you fly a transport system. You have to put together the different aspects, and that has to be orchestrated through an industrial effort, not through a public effort. So my answer is cooperation, 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 and we're very grateful to be part of Sky Alliance, who is putting this together.
So, talking about cooperation, I can imagine there's a variety of partners needed, a variety of both government, non-government, commercial, non-commercial needed to make this entire industry happen. As a group, how do you view that the collaboration is being kicked off and has that going on?
Question to me or
For all three of you. For all three of you.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to thank you for this opportunity. As a representative of the aerospace sector and the National Industrial Development Center, which falls under the umbrella of the Ministry of Industry, without having to mention, of course, the Vision 2030, everyone's aware of that. We have to start to think about mobility in the third dimension because of part of that vision calls for actual doubling of the population. One of the objectives is doubling the population of Riyadh, as well as in general in terms of expats as well as locals. I don't need to tell too many of you who live in Riyadh about the congestion that we are experiencing today. So it's inevitable that we have to start to think about the 3D mobility and move in the third dimension, as I say. It does have challenges, and the challenges are no different, in my opinion, as what you would see in 2D mobility. You have regulations, you have to have the roads, you have to have the infrastructure. It's the exact same thing. And this is exactly what's so interesting about the alliance here. I recall that Yvonne came to my office very excited to talk about the product. I love the idea because from my experience as a technical guy, I can see technically this is a viable product. However, I told her, if you go and manufacture this product tomorrow, how am I going to fly it? Who is going to fly it? Where is it going to land? Who's going to control it? Where are the roads? Where are the digital infrastructure? What are the regulations? So that clicked a question mark in my head, and that's what brought this whole alliance together. And in my view, that is probably the most unique and probably the only one that has come as a collective system to create a solution here in the kingdom. As a center, we see a lot of investors coming, or technical investors, let's say, coming through the center, they're presenting their ideas. We evaluate everybody across the board from a technical perspective as well as financial. I think one of the primary challenges is still to be addressed, and we're trying to address this now, is what I would call the adoption. Just as it's a vehicle that flies in the third dimension, who will be flying? Most people have that psychological barrier that puts a fear factor. Am I going to fly in this thing? Is it safe? It's unlike an aircraft. As a pilot myself, when you fly in a Cessna, it's not like when you fly in a big airplane. The Cessna will shake you and fly you, so if you're not brave and if you're not really confident, it scares you. So this is one of the challenges I see still to be addressed. That's my take.
I don't know why these things cause issues. Okay. I completely agree with you, Dr. Sommer, and the roadmap to this implementation and to take the fear away from the people, this requires different approaches. So first of all, as mentioned before, we start transporting cargo first. So we have the same vehicles for 2 years, and when we had a couple of 100,000 flights, then it's the time where the first passenger is sitting in. This is the first thing. The second thing is, I really invite you to come over to our vehicle, sit in and have a virtual experience and have a virtual flight. So this is how we want to implement this technology to people and to introduce it to them, to get the real feeling on how do I feel when it takes off, and what does it do to me? And we made a lot of experiences. We exhibited it, for instance, at COP28, at GEMTECH here at the Future Aviation Forum, at the Global Project Management Forum. We have a lot of people saying, oh, I would be scared to use it. Then they tried the virtual reality experience and they came out and, oh, I can't wait to have it. And this was really interesting as well for me to see that the adoption is so fast. And every time you have a breakthrough innovation, call it Airbnb, call it Uber, or whatever, it was always an exponential growth. So when people realize that it's really for a benefit for them, the adoption is on a speed of light. And I anticipate it will be the same here in student mobility.
Can I add to that briefly? And I would like to commend Dr. Sommer on his vision here too. When you read the technical papers, you will find that there are very different aircraft design out there. Yvonne spoke a little bit about the wheel of misfortune and how some of the designs we're seeing relate to less fortunate examples in the past. But there is one very specific element that I would like to leave you, ladies and gentlemen, with today. The eVTOL industry, and eVTOL stands for electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. The eVTOL industry is splitting into two major segments. The one segment is what we call electric aviation. Basically, they are equipping helicopter-type aircraft with electric propulsion, which makes them more environmentally friendly, a little more quiet, but it does not change the big picture. We have expensive vehicles being piloted by an active pilot, a trained pilot, flying between 1 and 5 passengers in a multi-million-dollar vehicle. And we have that part of the industry that is looking to build vehicles that have a chance of what we call ubiquity, the ability to be generally present for public service. Those are two fundamentally different approaches. It's the luxury industry with electric helicopters, and it's a mass transportation industry. If we want to make sure that we utilize all the positive aspects that we outlined in the last two conversations, it has to be geared towards scaling, scalability, rollout, mass rollout. That means it needs to be inexpensive and safe at the same time. There are very few companies out there, and particularly OEMs, who are diligently pursuing this goal, and FlyNow is one of them. And the miracle to me is the fact that NIDC, behind the face of Dr. Samer, has realized that there are these two paths, and if we want to solve the transportation challenges, not the rich boy problems, if we want to solve the transportation challenges this country has, we have to be looking at concepts that are scalable. Maybe you want to add to that.
No, thanks, Owen. I think you touched on a very critical point. And if we look at the growth of the automotive industry, we started. There were two powers that drove that adoption across the globe. So we're talking about the Ford model in the US, and then we're talking about the Volkswagen in Europe. And making it more affordable and accessible to the public made that adoption happen. If we thought of luxurious cars that are extremely expensive, very few people would have bought the Rolls-Royce or Mercedes at the time. But these kind of dynamics are very important to accelerate the adoption on a big mass. I do admire the objectives of FlyNow, because that is exactly the concept of the company. Small type of aircraft starts with cargo, so that they can establish credibility, reliability, etc., without risk to the public, and then move to the next level where you have 1 or 2 passengers. And that, in my opinion, will be much easier to adopt than having massive, large-scale crafts, it's called, eVTOLs, that will still pose a local risk and challenges on multiple levels. Besides the scalability and affordability, it's actually more in the complexity of designs and so on.
Yeah, you raised the issue of a single and a twin seater. The reason why we focused on a single and a twin seater is very easy. When you order a taxi or an Uber, you usually order that for yourself or for you and a partner. So you don't want to wait till 4 or 5 other guests are joining you doing the same route. So it really, to enhance and to scale up and to use it on a broad scale, it has to be a small device that is easy, that can land everywhere. So for instance, on a 10 by 10 millimeter field, we can store 14 of these devices. And this adds another perspective that is vital to implement this 3D mobility on a broad scale.
These are all very interesting points. Let's dive a bit further into the economic sides. So we've just learned automotive has been a very successful industry. We've seen on the slide that you presented that all of the other industries also are very interesting, yet aviation is the most cost efficient. There's about 1.5 billion cars now driving in the world. If we talk about scalability, both from the government point of view that is here in Saudi Arabia, OEM, and the ecosystem around it, what are the numbers of vehicles that you envision towards 2030? How do you see that flying? And what are the economics behind it? Can you share a bit more about that?
Go ahead.
So our plan is really 2030, when the expo is happening here in Riyadh, to jointly develop the system so that we can really have a minimum of 1,000 vehicles operating here in Riyadh. This is our vision.
From a government perspective, or from our perspective as Center, certainly 2030 is a very important target to us. Not just because of the vision, but also because of the Expo, followed by FIFA in 4 years. And the kingdom has definitely shown across the board an increase in its global positioning by opening the markets, investing, and showing great interest in advanced technologies such as 3D mobility. In terms of how many vehicles do we see, that's going to hinge on the speed at which we work with the different entities. So today we do have engagement with GACA. We have engagement across the ecosystem such as Cluster 2 or Darat to ensure that we have allocations of the proper infrastructure. In terms of putting the right regulations, this consortium actually is working with GACA to develop the right sets of regulations. I firmly believe the vast land and the size and the geography of the kingdom serves the purpose of 3D mobility more than any other country in the world. We have open spaces. We do have hot and harsh environment, which actually would put to test any kind of vehicle here for its durability. I always used to say this when I was with GE, if it runs in the desert here, it will run anywhere else. So that actually lends itself to testing a variety of these products as they come and emerge and become competitive in the landscape. Our objective is to have as many of these flying in the near future. So we are diligently working on developing the right regulations, negotiating with the right partners in order to develop that infrastructure. Hopefully we will achieve that. I firmly believe we will be able to achieve that level by 2030 and beyond.
So if I may add something on my personal wish list, I have not vetted this with Dr. Samar yet, but he will recognize what I'm saying. One of the big advantages of implementing a system such as this in a country like the Kingdom is that we have political options that we don't have in other countries, and we want to make use of them to the max benefit for the country. One of those issues is the ability of this country to put out incentive programs for technology adoption which are not possible in Western countries. In other words, we can promote the adoption of a new transport system by subsidizing the system or creating industrial incentives for the adoption for transportation between two industrial hubs that are previously not connected by land, by creating the appropriate programs. This is something that in Central Europe or the North America would take decades to implement. In this country, if the vision is there, you can implement this within a 24-month time frame. A huge difference and very decisive for the future of this form of transportation. So I'm hoping that Dr. Sanger dreams about this kind of incentive program for the next few weeks.
We do have incentives available within the ecosystem. We work with the various partners to address and evaluate the business cases and see what's suitable. So that's just the process that will exist. I just want to highlight, I don't want people to think that 3D mobility is a replacement for 2D mobility. It actually complements it, and it actually allows more freedom of choices, higher efficiency, and it does address a lot of the environmental elements of selection. I know that in automotive they have the same thing, we're moving towards not autonomous vehicles, but when it comes to 3D mobility, I believe the right solutions would start with automatic flight, then move into autonomous levels far in the future. From a safety perspective, from a regulatory perspective, at least to bring this into the market very quickly in terms of simplification.
And you talked on the economics, and just to have comparison, I believe that the same amount of money you need for 2 kilometers of metro is sufficient to set up the entire system.
So we're talking significant economies of scale here and financial scale, because digital infrastructure once developed is much simpler and more efficient to roll out than physical infrastructure. But let's touch on one last point, and for me that's kind of one of the main points I would like to leave with the audience here today too. Vehicles need to be operated. And we have been very clear about the fact, and Dr. Samar agrees, We want the operations of the vehicles to be done from within the country. There has to be local entities who actually own the vehicles and feel responsible for the transactional process of acquiring cargo, acquiring passengers, putting them in the vehicles and getting them flown to their destination. We are providing the technology for this. And I want to extend a warm invitation to all of you in the audience and everyone who is interested in this topic. Think about who the operators could be. Airline operators, helicopter operators, bus operators, large trucking companies are the entities that are predestined to become the kingpin of this industry in this country. And yes, it will be locals, it will not be somebody imported from the outside. It will be people with the local connections and with the vision and financial ability to promote this topic. And at the end of the day, the development that we're performing is expensive, and as fairly young companies, we're all in the process of growing fast. So we're also on a pathway of different investment cycles. So if there is interest in the investment, again, we're here for the next 2 days and we'll be very happy to talk to you.
To build on what you just said, for us here in the kingdom, localization is extremely important. Repeating localization. And I believe you as an alliance, and there are other technical partners also who are willing to do localization. But for us, localization, transfer technology, and IP, to become organic in this, to become the first, honestly, I think the kingdom can be the first to implement this on a large scale, very successful. From ability to develop the right set of regulations, because the freedom of space, the aerospace we have, the flexibility in the massive land, the potential for different partners who could be operators, as you said, ranging from Aramco to Red Sea Project to Neon, etc. The applications could encompass above and beyond just the transportation. We can start to think of we have massive coastal areas in the east and west where tourism, which is actually one of our Vision 2030 targets, and it's ramping up very quickly. This could be the vehicles for the future, and it has to be.
Yvonne, what would you like the audience to walk away with today?
Very good question. So I deeply admire His Royal Highness' extraordinary Vision 2030, and I'm really honored that I can contribute a little piece to make this vision a reality. Thank you.
Can we get a big round of applause for the panelists? Thank you.